Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, my name is Mr. Nyathi. I'll be assisting you or taking you through this module. This is my second year running doing this module. So I've seen how it goes and I understand what are the requirements. So I'm sorry I'll be delaying because I have to admit some students who are just coming in. Right, the name of the module is Business Statistics. Right, I'll try to highlight a few things that you need to understand probably before we start. Right, the first thing that I'll need you to understand is that as KS tutors, we'll deliver the module, all the module units in time for all the assessments. So whatever we do, we have the assessments in mind. So I'll make sure that we're getting some noise there.
No, that's what they're trying to our citizen lady said. She'll go there and find out if they can come one day and take the Southern or the people there.
I'm just trying to check who is disturbing us there and with the person. Okay. So I was just saying we deliver the module units as per the requirements of the assessments. As you might be aware, there are 3 assessments that you are required to do during this period. So everything that I'm going to do, I'll make sure that is done in line with all the assessments. So I'll make sure that when you are required to do your assessment 1, everything that's required it has been done at that particular point. For assessment 2, everything is done when the time comes, and the final one as well. I'll make sure that by the time you write your final assessment, we have covered all the required units. And then the second thing that you need to note is that all the sessions will be recorded and distributed to all the students, the Zoom recordings, and as well as the slideshows that will be used during the sessions. So even if you miss a session, you have the privilege to access all the sessions that we did in your absence. And then the third point, we are a professional institution, of course. We don't give solutions to assessments. We just provide the guide and make sure that we put you in a position to do the assessments on your own. So those are the 3 key points that I need you to understand before we start. Right, I'll go to my second slide there. Right, I was talking about the assessments, and your assessments are determined by the timelines. So these are the timelines according to the information that were provided. We have your formative assessment 1, which contributes 10%, and those are the days. Assessment 2, which contributes 30%, and that's the due date. And then we have the final assessment on the 12th of May, and it contributes 60% to your final exam. So like I was saying, that in terms of delivering the sessions, we'll make sure that we do everything according to these timelines. So just as a reminder, for the next coming 4 or 5 sessions, I will make sure that this session is there so that it keep on reminding us in terms of what we want to achieve and when. Right, on my slide number 2, right, the resources that you require to be in a position to pass this module. Of course, you might need more according to how you understand, but From my experience, there's the study guide, of which I believe all of you have it. Of course, there's an electronic copy that I've seen, the prescribed textbook, business statistics using Excel, a first course for SA students. Yeah, that's according to your study guide. That's the prescribed textbook. And then obviously you need a calculator. And then on this one, you won't just need an adding machine, you need a scientific calculator. So here you will need a scientific calculator. Of course, if you haven't bought a calculator, I would recommend any version of the Casio, the scientific Casio, even the Sharp, I've seen it works. But my first preference, if you haven't bought any calculator, please do buy a Casio. It will make our work easier because most of the students, they have that calculator. And you'll find that in some of the calculations, it makes your work even easier. Of course, you require your computer there. Of course, as you might see, the business statistics using Excel, which is your Microsoft Office Excel here, the module requires you to know how to perform some of the tasks using Excel. Of course, it's not in the exam, but as part of the completion of the module, you'll be required to know how to perform some tasks using Microsoft Excel. So for this to be complete, you will need some computer or laptop. Right, I'll go to the next slide. Right, these are the units. The module is comprised of 7 units, which you need to cover within this given period. So we have the introduction to statistics, which today we intend to cover this. There isn't much on the introduction, as you will see, but in Unit 2, that's where we have some statistics, but here on Unit 1 is just the introduction. Of course, you have your Unit 2, which tries to make you understand the process of data in terms of what is data, data collection methods, and where do you get data if you want to find any data. And then presentation, these are just graphs. You find that here you'll be dealing with graphs, your bar chart, your histogram, your cumulative frequency graph, your pie chart, and stuff like that. And then Unit 4, which is your management statistics. This is your descriptive statistics here. We'll discuss what is descriptive statistics today, but this is mostly your descriptive statistics, whereby you are required to make straightforward calculations, finding the mean, which is your average, your mode, your median, and your standard deviation. These are the basic concepts that you are required to understand and calculate in that particular section. There isn't much difficult there because the formula is given and you can as well use your calculator to make those calculations. And then in terms of the probability distribution functions, that's where your inferential statistics starts here. These two, of course, here you are required to understand 2 distributions, the binomial and the normal distributions. Those are the 2 distributions that you are required to understand at this level. Of course, I will take you through that. And I would like to say it again at this stage that one thing disappointing about Unit 5, especially according to the information that's provided by your module, the section requires you to understand probability theory, but it's not covered in your module guide. So, but as KS, we'll make sure that we take you through probability theory so that you are in a better position to understand you are in a better position to understand Unit 5. Of course, correlation and regression, there isn't anything much there. Here you are required to do only bivariate data. So it's 2 sets of data, and you are required to test those linearity and stuff like that. So that session is also a direct use of the formula, but we'll see it when we get there. Here, I'm just giving you the overview of the course or the module. And then forecasting methods using time series, of course, breaking down your time series into those 4 or 5 parts. That's not difficult as well. It's more of theory. Yeah, if you check your module, it doesn't require you to do calculations there. It's more of you understanding the definitions of a few terms, and then you'll be covered in that particular section. So those are the 7 units that you are required to cover under this module. So, like I said, the guide is going to be the timelines of the assessments, but it won't take us long. We'll make sure that we cover everything within the stipulated times. And then now I will move to the next slide. Right here, this session is there in your session number 0 as well, whereby I tried to make you understand the type of questions that they bring into your exam. The reason why I'm doing that is because I want you to, when we start doing this module, you have to have a rough idea in mind of what's expected of you, so that when even you start or even we discuss these concepts together, we understand what we need to achieve. In as much as we need to acquire skills to apply these concepts in the outside world, but the first thing that we need to make sure is that we pass the exam. So we need to make sure that when we get into when we start this module, we understand the requirements of the assessments, because that's the most important thing. So in terms of questioning, with my previous class, we say to have the theory part of the module. I will explain, and then we have the calculations. And then in our mini research that we did, or analysis of the previous papers, on average, we discovered that the theory part contributes about 25% of the exam, and the calculations, they contribute about 75% of the exam. Here we are considering the final assessment. So in terms of the theory, what we classified, because this is our classification, you will never find it anywhere. It's our classification, and we need to explain it to each other so that we understand it. Right, in terms of the theory here, we are looking at mostly the definitions. Here we are looking at the definitions. We need also the classifications. We also need the differences. And then we also have the listing. I'll just explain there, right? You see, with any study that you do or any module that you... Okay,
finish. On top of the thing.
Albert, your hand is up.
On top of the counter. Next to the microwave.
Hello,
Mr. Nyathi. Mr. Nyathi. Good evening.
Evening, Mr. Albert. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir.
Good. It seems like we have a lot of students that are struggling to log in because of the authentication process. Is there something we can do to get these guys to get on board? Because I mean, it's no point in showing this, and we have a lot of people waiting to get in, but they can't get in. Is there anything we can do on that?
The authentication, I'm not sure whether I can change the setting here. What's the problem with the authentication? Because you got the link in there.
Yeah, we got the link here. I mean, some people are in, but some people are struggling to authenticate using their emails.
Okay.
So
I'm
I
not
don't know if there's
sure.
anything you can do just to let them come in. That's
I'm
all I
trying to
wanted to
check
say.
on the
Okay. Thank you very much.
settings here. Maybe if someone can assist us, how we can change the settings.
Mr. Nyathi,
Yes, sir.
maybe if you can make me host, and I'll try to do it on my side.
How do I make you a host there?
On the participants, you can just right click there or click on the three dots next to my name there. And it says make host.
Okay. On the participants. Okay, it's done, so you can take over.
Who finished the water now?
Okay, so the meeting settings are fine. There's no requirement to authenticate. It's just the waiting room, and there's no one currently in the waiting room. They must try on the laptop or on the phone to record to join in.
When
should
I
be
logged
okay.
in, it told me that the host requires authentication, and I had to put in my email. So I logged in with my Google account, which is no problem. But some people seem to have a problem with it, getting in.
Oh, okay. Unfortunately, now during the session, you can't change that setting.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yeah.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nyathi, you can reclaim host and proceed with the presentation.
Okay, I reclaim it or you give it back to me.
You reclaim it will come.
Okay. Where exactly? Sir, please assist me there.
You are the host now, you can present.
Okay. And my slide is, you can now see my slide.
Yes, it is clear.
Okay. Right, so I was still on the type of questions that they usually bring, and even trying to come up with the weighting. I've already said that theory part from our previous experience contributes about 25%, and the calculations about 75%. And our theory part, we say it comprises of the definitions, classifications, differences, and listings. So here, in order for you to do well on this section, you need to make sure that you understand all the definitions. As you will see with your unit 1, it introduces a lot of new terms, like what is data, types of data, methods of collecting data. So you'll find that your theory part comprises of those. They require you to understand those definitions. So let's take note that when we start during our own times, or we make discussions during these sessions, we make sure that we take note of each and every definition that we are given, because that will be required when you answer questions on the theory part. Sometimes you find that some questions, they require you to understand the difference between any two given definitions. So we require to, where they give you terms and give you the differences, you need to understand those differences. Sometimes they give you a list and say 3 methods of collecting data. They give you those 3 methods. And then in the exams, they will ask you the 3 methods of collecting data. Option A, they list 3. Option B, they list another 3. So in order for you to be in a position to answer that question, you need to understand those listings and the differences. And then in terms of the calculations, this is your direct use of your formula or your calculator. You'll find that in some sections, although the formula is given, but some calculations may be done directly by the calculator. So you'll find that your calculator requires you to input some values and then command it to do certain calculations for you. So in some sections, even if the formula is given, the calculator has the ability to make those calculations for you as a shortcut. Of course, you'll find that the starter guide doesn't go into that, but here we'll make sure that where you can take the shortcut and use a calculator without using the formula, we'll teach you to use the calculator. So that's why when I started, I say in terms of the resources, you require a scientific calculator. And to make our job easier, it would be better if the greater part of the students have a similar version of the calculator, so that when I explain how you make certain calculations, it covers almost everyone. But if you have bought a calculator, it's fine. You don't have to change it. We'll assist you as per your calculator. So in terms of the structuring of the exam, this is what I know according to the experience. But those who look at the past or previous papers, you will realize that for the November exam, what they did this, they put 0 here and put 100% here. So that's why I'm saying, when we say 25% this side and 75% this side, it's not a rule to say this is what will happen every session of the exam. It might change, but we're saying we are statisticians. We rely on previous data to make predictions about the future. So according to the data that we have collected and made our observation, this is the conclusion that we made. But last year, November, there was nothing on theory and there was 100% on the calculations. But I promise we'll make sure that when the exam comes, and they give you 100% theory, we'll make sure that you are ready. Even if they give you 100% calculations, we'll make sure that you are ready for your exam, because that's what we have signed up for. And that's the agreement that we make with our students, that we'll make sure that we are ready for the exam. Right, that's about the type of questions. So we'll emphasize in our sessions to make sure that the theory is covered and the calculations are covered as well. And then now in my next slide, now we look at statistics in general. You realize that here I'm just trying to, because if you realize, you check your unit 1, it doesn't have much. It's just probably the definition of statistics and the statistical process as a scientific method, and there's nothing more there. But now, in this session, we'll try to expand on our unit 1, so that we add a lot of things, so that by the end of this session, even if though you don't understand what we are trying to do, but you have a picture of what we are trying to do. So I'll shoot at random from now going onwards. I'll just make explanations, introduce some terms, and probably where we need to discuss, we discuss as well. So now, the name of the module is business statistics. But we will need at this stage to understand what is statistics. I tried to uncomplicate the definitions, because if you check, some definitions are very complicated, you will never understand. But this is just an introductory course. So I'll make sure that in terms of the definition, you understand the process, even if you don't understand what is statistics. But the most important thing for you is to understand the process of statistics. Right. From what I have there, statistics is a branch of applied mathematics that involves collection, description, analysis, inference of conclusions from quantitative data. Right, if you check this definition, it talks about collection. You'll find in your unit 2, they introduce you to the process of collecting data. And then in your unit 3, they introduce you to descriptive statistics in your unit 3 here. And then it also says analysis and inference of conclusions from quantitative data. Of course, unit 3 and 4, they include the descriptive and the analysis. And then as you move to your unit 6 and 5, that's when you find your inferential statistics. So unit 5 and 6, that's where you get this. So this definition, I liked it. So of course, you won't find it in your study guide, but I liked this definition because it described the whole module in terms of the units that it covers. So when you talk about the collection, you talk about the description, you talk about the analysis and the inference. This definition on its own, it covers all the units that you are expected to cover in this module. Of course, the other term that you need to take note here is your quantitative data. So in order for you to understand this module, you'll be required to understand the process of collecting data. Obviously, when you understand the process of collecting data now, the module takes you through the methods of collecting data. It is specific on those, or on that, the module that you are doing is specific on the methods of collecting data. And then in terms of your descriptions of statistics, I've already told you that you have your graphs, your bar graph, your histogram, your pie chart, your cumulative frequency graph. So,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Number one.
Hello?
Hey man, they've changed the way we log in via Zoom. So now we have to download the other Zoom that says Zoom on your computer. And then I struggled, but finally I'm in. But I struggled.
Thank you, sir. We are happy that you are finally in. Can I proceed? Thank you. Okay, so the inferential statistics here, this is about the prediction of the future. Of course, as you will find out in this module, statistics allows you to take previous data and make predictions about the future. So we'll look at that as well. And then quantitative data, there's a term here. Of course, we will discuss, you'll find that in our next slide. Your module requires you to understand the process of data from the collection up to the processing of data using statistical methods. So in our next slide, we'll discuss data in detail. What exactly is data? What types of data do we have? Your module specifically requires you to understand what is data, types of data, and then up to the end. So, of course, here, quantitative. I'll agree with this definition. It's my definition, of course, but I'll be critical again of this definition because it only says quantitative. But you will find as you go through this module, there is also what is called qualitative. Like I said, I'll shoot at random in this session. I won't dwell specific on the concepts, but I'll just shoot at random so that you have a picture of what we're trying to achieve in these sessions. Right, the definition restricts us to quantitative data, but you'll find that your module opens up and talks about qualitative data. Of course, quantitative data, as you discover in this module, these are numbers. It's data that comes in the form of numbers, and qualitative data, this is the data that comes in the form of what? Letters. So you'll find that there's data that comes in the form of letters, and there's data that comes in the form of numbers. But we'll discuss these concepts in our next sessions. So, for example, if we talk about age always comes in numbers. Yeah? You are 25, you are 26, you are 30, you are 40, you are 45. So this data will always come in numbers. Even if you talk about your revenue for the company, it will always come in numbers. You made this, how much per this year or per this financial year. So it will always come in numbers. But some data comes in letters. For example, if we talk about color, you find that there's blue, there's yellow, there's green. This is data, but it's no longer coming up in numbers, but it's coming up in what? In terms of the letters or words. But we'll discuss this in detail because the module requires you to understand this in detail. But like I said, I'm trying to shoot at random so that you have a picture of what we are trying to achieve. Of course, here, I tried to give you a picture of the statistical process to say there is the process of collecting data. If you are a statistician or you're a researcher, what you need first is to collect your data. Of course, this is not complete, as you will see in my next slide, but let's say now you have your data. We're not saying you first collect your data, where do you get your data? And then the second part, presentation and analysis. This is your statistics. Now you are making your calculations. In point 3, interpretation of the results. So we're saying the statistical process, you don't just do calculations for the sake of doing calculations. After having done all your calculations in the form of statistics, you need to come up with the story and tell us what's the meaning of the numbers that you got. Because we're saying the numbers that you get, they are supposed to tell us a story. So as a researcher or a statistician or a student of statistics, after having done all the calculations, you must be in a position to tell a story out of those numbers. If you are saying the average is 10, what does it mean? Relative to other, of course, calculations that you have done. So statistics doesn't end with the calculations only, because number 2 is the calculations. It doesn't start with the calculations, it starts with what? Collecting the data. It doesn't end with the calculations, but it goes further, whereby now you interpret the results and make conclusions. So in brief, that's the process of statistics, but you need just to understand that statistics is a branch of applied mathematics that involves all those stages. But in my next slides, as you will see, I try now to be specific because this is statistics in general, but our module is business statistics. So we need to, at the end of the day, we need to focus in and say, what is business statistics? And then as students of business statistics, what is it that you are required to understand, to say we have achieved in this module? With that being said, I will move to my next slide. Of course, here is still, I'm still trying to make you understand the statistics from another angle. We are still now trying to understand what is statistics. I've changed now and used a different approach. Here they are saying statistics has been described as turning data into information. Like when I spoke about the statistical process from the data collection to the interpretation of the results. You have your data. At the end of the day, you need to get information out of data. We're not interested in the numbers, no, or your calculations. What we need at the end of the day is to tell us or give us the information out of those numbers. And then now we can say the statistical process is complete. And then 2, you can say data-based decision-making. We're still saying the same thing here. Data-based decision-making, you are getting your data and you are trying to make decisions. So these 2, they are stated differently, but they still mean one and the same thing. The technology of scientific method, of course, here, what you just need to know is that statistics is a science. So it's a science process, it's a scientific process. You will see in your study guides, let me check this next slide, whether it's, yeah. My next slide explains that this one is stated in your module guide. You will find it. This part where it says statistics as a science, or as a science, as a scientific approach. So now I will explain this again. Like I said, I'm just shooting at random so that I introduce a lot of things and repeat one and the same thing so that you will end up having a picture of what we are trying to achieve. Right now, they are saying the statistical process involves the hypothesis. I'll explain this. And then you have your data, and then you have your conclusion. Of course, the hypothesis here, I'll try to simplify it. Here, you are saying your research question. I'll explain this. This is your research question. Right, in order for you to collect data or to start a statistical process, you need to have a question to say, what is it that I want to investigate? You can't just start a statistical process without having a question. So this research question is your hypothesis. So before you do anything, you need to have a question. What is it that you want to research on? And then after that, if you know the question now, you go to your data now. That's where you start collecting your data. You have your data storage. Of course, your module doesn't cover the data storage, but statistical process requires even the storage of data. But your module just requires you to understand the types of data and how you collect it. Here, even the analysis, where you start making your calculations, is covered under data here. And then now, after 1 and 2 have been done, you go to your story now to say, what conclusions do we make out of that? Are we improving in terms of sales? Are we improving in terms of revenue? Those are the questions that we'll end up asking as a business. Of course, there are a lot of questions. I know there are a lot of you are coming from business backgrounds. You are working for big companies. You are owners of companies. So you understand the business questions that we are talking about in terms of the improvement. Right. Before I give you the chance probably to ask questions, I'll go again to another definition. It's still the same thing. I'm trying to bring it in different ways so that when we start on Monday, we start on Unit 2, you understand what we are talking about. Right, here is another definition. Of course, I used this definition last year for my students last year. Right, statistics is collection, organizing, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of numerical data. If you check this definition, it's not different from what we started with. It's just stated differently, but it's still the same thing. We collect, we organize, we present, we analyze, we interpret. Here, when we interpret, that's when we start making conclusions. And we are talking about data. So this is your statistics. And we are talking now statistics from a general point of view. Of course, business statistics and statistics in general, they are not different. But what they have done now, they've borrowed the statistical methods and say, no, guys, you have your statistics there, which is very abstract and it involves a lot of things. But as businesses, we need this part of your statistics and we make them business statistics. So here now we are saying we take statistics and apply it in business. That's our business statistics. Of course, we'll try in the next slide to look at business statistics and probably the variables that we're looking for when we talk about business statistics. So now the process of collection, I've repeated this many times. Process of gathering data, right? Proper methods must be followed. Your module tells you the sources of data. It goes specific on the sources of data. Organizing, editing, classification, tabulation, putting data in rows and columns. Your module doesn't teach you on the classification and the storage of data. But if you have dealt with the spreadsheets, you know that most of the data comes in the form of spreadsheets. And so that process of capturing data in the spreadsheets and stuff like that is Of course, your module doesn't dwell much into that, but as a statistics student, you need to know how to do that. Of course, in terms of the presentation, your module covers that in detail. The analysis now, which is your calculations of the mean, mode, range, standard deviation, variance, and so on. These ones are covered in your module. Even if you check your module guide, these are well explained. And then the interpretation, drawing conclusions and making decisions. Of course, the last part of your module, especially when you deal with your correlation, it requires at some point for you to make conclusions and recommend in terms of the decisions. You will see that when you get there. But in terms of the descriptive statistics, there isn't much in terms of making the decisions and drawing conclusions. But the last, I think it's unit 6, it gives you a feel of how you make conclusions and and make decisions using statistical results. So in brief, this is statistics. I tried to bring it in different ways so that you have a picture of what we are talking about. And in general, we are saying we are taking business numbers or business data, which comes in the form of numbers, and we are saying we are trying to analyze that data and make conclusions about our business. Generally, that's what business statistics entails. Right, with that being said, I will allow just a few minutes or a few seconds to say those who have questions or anything that you need to say or any suggestion or any addition is your chance now. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Albert. I think I had it mistaken the dates or the times that we were doing that. So we'll officially start with the lessons on Monday. That's correct.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I'm saying that officially we will start with the lessons on Monday.
Yes.
Okay, this is only an introductory session, correct?
Yes, this is an introductory session, and from our administrative side, this is an open session open to everyone. So as for Monday, that's when we'll start the actual sessions, but this is just the introduction. That is open to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Was on Monday? Huh?
Okay. Yeah, that would be on Monday. And if there are no changes, the sessions, they are scheduled for Mondays and Wednesdays. So we have 2 sessions per week, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is the schedule that we have until further notice. So Monday, Wednesday, till we finish. Of course, if there is need for us to add, depending on the rate at which we are moving, we'll always add the other session.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock for me. I'm an hour ahead of you guys.
Okay. But that's good. Right, ladies and gentlemen, be free. You also give me the direction when you speak to me, because that's when I'll understand you much better. So let's talk to each other. We make this an interactive session. Hello? Are you trying to say something?
You will be available on the WhatsApp group?
Not yet. But if there is need.
There's always a need. We don't want to bother Mr. S all the time.
Okay. No, I'll
So
raise
it's
that.
just
with-
when the students have questions, then they can ask that.
Okay. Of course, there wasn't such an arrangement, but I won't have any problem with that. I will raise that with Mr. S and then we'll take it over from there. But I don't have any problem
Okay,
with
that's fine. You speak to the boss and let the boss decide.
that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, if there are no questions or any additions or any suggestions, then please feel free to make suggestions because I'm trying to average the approach so that I accommodate everyone. But you may find that in my approach, you may be left out. So if you feel like the way we are doing things, you're not being accommodated, please feel free to make the suggestions. We are always flexible because these sessions are designed to make you do better. So you can't just come here and pretend everything is fine, while it's not fine. We are there to make sure that this is fine for everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, now I'm just looking at a comment that Shane made on the chat, that you must just try and frequently look at the chats even because some people, or he doesn't have sound. So if you can just have a look at that also.
Okay, thank you. I've seen some of us don't have sound and you must look at the charts. I'm not sure the sound, usually the sound problem, is it from my?
No, it's not from your side. It's from the students, some of the students.
From the student side, né? Okay, that's noted, sir. Thank you. Okay, now we go to, I would like to look at these two terms because they are also the pillars of our statistics, the concept of the population and the concept of the sample. Right. According to the definition that I put there, a set or a group of all objects for a particular study. And then number two, we're saying a sample is a part of the population selected by some sampling procedure, which is your subset in this case. So we're saying when you are conducting a study, you have the list of all the objects of the study. It's like when you want to conduct a research about Mencosa. If your study is about all the students at Mencosa, then all the students at Mencosa are your population. But if you decide to investigate a part of the students instead of a whole, that part that you decide to investigate is your sample. So always the sample is always less than the population. Of course, your module requires you to understand why instead of using the population for a particular research, you end up using the smaller unit, which is your sample. Of course, we'll discuss that. So you'll find that the population is not a fixed definition. The definition moves according to what or let's say it moves according to your hypothesis question. What is it that you are investigating? Because if my study or my investigation is about those students who are doing business statistics at Mencosa, which means my population now, it's all students who are doing business statistics. If my study is about female students who are doing business statistics, then the set of all students, of all female students who are doing business statistics becomes my population. So I'm saying it's not fixed. It depends on your question or hypothesis question. What is it that you are studying? If my research is about South Africa, which means everyone who is in South Africa is what is my population. But if my research is about residents of Gauteng, then which means all the residents of Gauteng are my population. If my research is about those who are staying in Sandton, then everyone who stays in Sandton is my population. So the definition moves according to your study or your research. And we're saying if you have defined your population, anything that is part of that population that you are going to investigate becomes your number 2, which is your sample. So in this case, they say the objects may be business statistics students or persons, voters, plants, Mencosa students, fishes in a pond, ShopRite customers. So if your research is about everyone who buys at ShopRite, then everyone who buys at ShopRite is your population. Right, and then the sample, it is part of the population selected by some sampling methods. Of course, your module requires you to understand the sampling procedure and some sampling methods. We'll discuss that as we move forward. But now at this stage, what I need you to understand, right, is that the process of selecting a sample, that's subset of a population, is called sampling. We'll deal with that when we get there. The number of objects in a sample is called the sample size. And then it is believed that a sample is best representative of the population. Of course, we'll discuss that. So now I want to take you through to understand why would you say you are given a population. Let's say we want to do an investigation or a study about all students in Mencosa. Why will I choose, let's say Mencosa has 1,500 students. Does it make sense to say, I want to make an investigation and make conclusions about 1,500 learners, but I go and take only 200 and make conclusion about all the students at Mencosa? Right, in statistics, that's what we do. Right, your module explains to you why you rather check the sample and not use the whole population. Of course, the main reason is the issue of cost. If you are going to distribute a questionnaire to 1,500 learners, it will take you time, it will cost you money. But we are saying through the process of statistics, it's possible to make conclusions about these 1,500 learners using these 200 learners. The statistics allows us to do that. And I think you have seen, we are moving towards elections. Those research companies will be telling us that ANC is going to get less than 50%. They've done their research, but they didn't come to us and ask us who we are going to vote for. They just take a certain group of people, they interview them, and then out of those, they make conclusions about all of us. Sounds ridiculous, but statistics allows us to do that. So there's no need to investigate the whole population. We're saying statistical methods allows us to take that particular small group and make conclusions about the whole population. But one thing that, again, I will request you to understand, require you to understand at this stage, the definition here talks about sampling, sampling methods. When you choose your sample, you don't need to just choose without a specific method. You need to have a method of choosing your sample so that it represents the population. If I want to investigate about, let's say it's our 2024 is just around the corner. I want to find, to make an investigation about who the voters are going to vote for. If I'm going to interview only the people in Gauteng, it won't be possible to make the conclusions about the whole population because Gauteng doesn't represent the whole of South Africa. If I'm going to go to Western Cape, I'm not going to get the conclusion about the whole population. So we're saying at the end of the day, when you choose your population, your sample, it needs to represent the population so that you can make the conclusions about the population. But your module requires you to understand this sampling method. So as we move forward, you'll find that they will tell you there's this method, there's this method, there's this method, and how do you use this method, how do you use it? But at this stage, I want us to understand that the population is the set of all elements under investigation. And then if you take the part of those elements under investigation in trying to make the conclusions about the whole, then that small part is called the sample. And then we're done with this part. And we're still doing the introduction. We haven't gone to the specific aspects of the module. So on Monday, that's when we'll go to the specific aspects of the module. But here, I just want you to understand the statistical process. That's the idea of this session. Understand the statistical process. What is it that statisticians do? That's what we are looking at now. Right, I'll go to my next slide. Right here, of course, when you do statistics further, there are 3 branches of statistics, but your module requires you to understand 2, and we'll stick to that. We don't want to trouble ourselves with things that are not required by your module. So according to requirements of your module, you need to understand this classification. Statistics can be divided into 2. There's descriptive statistics and there's inferential statistics. And our duty now is to understand the difference between the 2. What is descriptive statistics? What is the inferential statistics? And what's the difference between the 2? And then we'll be done with this slide. Right, descriptive statistics. I'll read the definition that we have there. Methods which are used for collection, presentation, as well as analysis of data. These methods include measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, measures of correlation, and the use of tables and graphs. So descriptive statistics here. Here you are just making your calculations and they are just drawing your tables. That's descriptive statistics. All those calculations that we do, of course, the definition goes further to say central tendency would deal with this in detail in our next sessions. But the central tendency here, we're talking about your mean, your mode, and your median. Measures of dispersion, we are talking about your range and your standard deviation. And then you have your correlation, which is your correlation coefficient. And you also have your tables and your graphs. So here it's about those calculations that you make out of your data. That's what is called descriptive statistics. And then inferential statistics refers to all methods by which conclusions related to the population are made on the basis of the given sample. That's what we're discussing in the previous slide. So that's why I decided that in my previous slide, I discussed the population versus the sample concept. So we're saying inferential statistics, what we're discussing in the previous slide, to say, if you're having a population, but you decide to take a part, this part, and use this part to make the conclusions about everyone, that's what is called inferential statistics. You have this part, which is called your sample, analyze it, and make the conclusions about everyone. That type of statistics is, that branch of statistics is called inferential statistics. So those are the two branches of statistics that we are required to know and understand. I don't think there's anything difficult there. I have a question here from Albert Zen. So what will be, as per your example of voters and the voting process? Albert, may you please clarify your question on the voters? Albert, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So what you're saying is that the inferential statistics is like your sample that, or like your suggestion that you gave earlier. They use a certain sample of the population to determine who's going to win the elections at the end of the day.
Yes.
That's what you mean by the inferential statistics. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
In the example of the voters, ne?
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
They
Thank
don't
you.
question the whole population. They only question a sample of the population.
Sorry.
Oh, they don't question the whole South African population. They only question a sample of the population. The South African
Yes.
population.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Mr. Albert. Right. Let's go to. Now we are trying to understand the business statistics. Of course, having discussed the statistics and the statistical process, I think now we have a rough picture of what is statistics. Of course, now we want to pin this down now into business. Of course, now if we understand statistics in general, it won't be difficult to understand now what is business statistics. Having discussed all the statistical process and the statistical methods, now we're saying business statistics in particular now. Business statistics in particular, we are saying now we are just taking those methods of statistics and we are trying to apply them in business. So in simple terms, that's what is business statistics. So here I have put 3 varying definitions: the application of statistical methods to analyze business data, using statistical methods to answer business questions. Business statistics help of course, number 3 there is just how it can help businesses. But now let's look at this definition. Now we're saying we're taking those methods of statistics and we want to apply them in business. That's what is called business statistics. And you check business statistics doesn't take all the statistical methods. We just take particular methods and then we use them in business. A long time ago, they used to, you find that when you are doing you're coming from even economic sciences or commercials, you do the same statistical course with students who are doing an honors degree in statistics or a general degree in mathematics and statistics. But now they've changed. They've designed specific courses for business students or commercial students. And those guys who are doing mathematics and statistics, they have their own statistics, because I understand they felt it was unfair for you to do all that complicated statistical calculations, while at least you're not going to use them in business. So business statistics is not a very old study. Of course, they used to call it quantitative analysis of business. Now they've changed it, they call it business statistics. Of course, despite the change in name, but it's almost still the same. So here in general, we're saying, take those statistical methods and try to apply them in business. That's what we do in terms of, that's business statistics. And then now in terms of how does it help companies? Now, if you understand the statistical process, you can see now that those calculations that we do in statistics, if you apply them in your business, they will help you to understand the present of your business. Because if you make the calculations or the mean of your sales or the mean of your revenue or the standard deviation of your sales, you have a picture about what's currently happening in your business. And we're saying with that information now, you can try and predict the future. Of course, we'll never be certain about the future, but we are saying with those methods now and of statistics and a little bit of information, we can roughly tell what's going to happen in the future with a little bit of accuracy. Of course, we'll never be 100% accurate, but we're saying within a certain level of confidence, we can say, this is what is going to happen. So this is our business statistics. We understand the present and we can make predictions about the future. Of course, I put just a few benefits there that can save you money. You can find opportunities, because if you can predict the future, then you can be prepared for the future and take advantage of coming opportunities. Improve efficiency. If you know what's happening in your business, you can easily identify the problems and come up with the solutions, and thereby improving efficiency. So that's in general. So that's all what business statistics is all about. Right, before we close this session, we still have about 30 minutes or so. Of course, in our session number 0, I said that our sessions are not determined by the time. They are determined by the concepts that we cover for that particular day. So you'll find that some of our sessions will be longer, some will be shorter. And I hope you guys will be prepared for that. So it's about the concepts or the aspects that we need to cover for that particular day. If we cover the aspects that we need to cover in 30 minutes, then that will be fine for the day. But lastly, I'll need us to discuss the concept of data. That's another tool that we'll need for our next sessions. Now you know what is statistics, you know the branches of statistics, you understand a little bit of the statistical process. Now we've been talking about data. What is data? Data this, data that. Now I want to take you through the definition of data so that when we go to our next session, we have the full foundation to start the sessions. Right. Like I said previously, data can be numerical and it can be non-numerical. Of course, in our session, we'll discuss the quantitative data, but at this stage, I'll require you to understand that your numerical data is called quantitative data, and your non-numerical data is called qualitative. So in your unit 2, you will find this classification, and your module, especially the exercises, they give quite a number of good examples in terms of this classification. So if you check your study guide, it has a lot of very good examples in terms of this classification. This is qualitative data. But now, we haven't come up with a definition, but we are saying in terms of definition, data is the set of information recorded or collected by the business for the purposes of statistics. So all the information that's gathered during business transactions, because when you do your business transactions, there are records that you keep. And we are saying those records are the source of your data. You record your sales, you record your sales, your revenue, you record your expenses, you record your of course, salaries are part of expenses. You record things like absenteeism at work. I'm coming from I was once an HR manager, so I know absenteeism is a very problematic area. With my statistics, I'll record all the absenteeism for individuals and for the company and try to analyze and come up with the conclusions about individuals and certain departments. So all that information that we record or obtain during business transactions, that's the source of our business data. Then we're saying now, when we do our business statistics, we're taking that information and analyzing it and trying to make conclusions about the company. So that's your data. It can come in the form of numbers or non-numbers. I think that's basic. And then now, this is still introduction. We'll look in more detail into this in our next session. But now, the quality of data, because there's this statement you say is garbage in, garbage out. Né? If your input is just nonsense, then the output is also going to be what? Be nonsense. So this now spells for saying the data that you need to collect, it must be of the right quality. Because if you collect data that's not of the right quality, you can use all the best methods of statistics, but still come up with conclusions that won't benefit anyone. Because why? You are analyzing that data that's not of the right quality. So your module requires you to understand, especially when your unit 1 starts, they tell you that the quality of data depends on 3 variables. The type of data determines its quality. You'll find that it's easier to deal with the numbers rather than qualitative data. Right, the source of data, where do you get your data? It determines the quality. For example, if I'm doing a research, let's say my study is about, let's say I belong to the construction industry, and I want to make a study about the construction industry in general. You'll find that the data that I obtain from the original sources, let's say I go around construction companies, asking them questions about my study and the recording. The information is more of a quality than the information that I will get from secondary sources. So here I'm talking about first-hand information versus second-hand information or third-hand information. So the question of saying, where did you get your data, determines your quality as well. I'm not saying secondary data or secondary data is always of poor quality, but we're saying when we are now using secondary data, the quality tends to be compromised. But at this stage, I just need you to understand that the source of data also determines its what? Its quality. And then even the method of collection. Imagine long time ago when we were doing research, we go to our respondents with a printed questionnaire. We ask them questions, we explain to them the questionnaire, and we record. But these days, we no longer go to do field research. We send questionnaires via the emails, we send them via different platforms. Some research questions are conducted via these social media platforms, Twitter and stuff like that. So if this is my personal opinion, data that I go and collect directly from the source will be more reliable than the data that's being collected via other mediums of collecting data. Because if I'm conducting a survey and I'm carrying a questionnaire, if the respondent doesn't understand, I'll explain the questions. Of course, it comes with its own problems. It becomes expensive, it becomes biased. There's always advantages and disadvantages. But at this stage, we're not into that. We're just saying, understand that the quality of data depends on 3 variables, which is your type of data, the sources of data, and the methods of collection. Thank you. And then now, the next slide, importance of statistics in business. I wanted this to be discussion, but we don't have time. Because we're in a business setup, né? So we need to understand statistics from a business point of view. So during your own time, you just need to just divide the company or the business into different departments and check what type of information is available from each department and how can statistics help you to improve that particular department. So, for example, the HR department, what type of statistical data can we obtain? I've already spoken about the absenteeism. It's a very, very important issue that you need to understand as an HR manager. You have the salaries. Of course, the salaries cuts across all the departments. Né? The HR department, the accounting, or the finance department. So here I wanted us to say, for each and every department, of course, the list continues here, depending on the company. Look at each department and say, what type of data can I obtain from this department? And after I've analyzed this data, how can it help this department? Even the marketing, of course, sales here. The marketing department is always interested in the sales or even the advertising expenses. I'm just giving you examples here. All this information, when you belong to the marketing department, you need to know the sales, you need to know advertising expenses, you need to know a whole lot of things that are required during your own spare time to list. And I can see here, thank you very much, Shane. He has given us the most important variables for the HR department, the demographics, né? In terms of age, race, These days we look at even disability. That's another democratic variable that you need to know as an HR manager. Even gender. It's very important to an organization to know how many females, how many males, and so on. So these are democratic variables that you need to know as an HR manager, because we talk about equity, we talk about BE, we talk about those interventions that are designed to address previous problems in the country. So all those things, if you belong to that department, you need to understand and know that, in terms of age, I have youth, non-youth, and stuff like that. And then in terms of the operations, of course, here, that's your production. Yeah? If you are a production company, you need to know the quantities of that you are producing per minute or per hour or per second or per day or per month. And I have production department and operations. Now I don't know the difference. But I think the point now, you understand what I require you to do. We won't discuss this. You will discuss it during your own time, make your own observations. And then when we start next time, we'll just start on Unit 2. But the point here is for you to understand the relevance of statistics in each of the departments of a business unit. Okay, finance. Someone talks about finance, of course. They're saying this is the main department in the company, the finance. And you'll find that the finance department, or all the data that's in the other departments is relevant to the finance department, because these are the guys who need to make the budgets and things like that. So they will need to know what's happening in the HR department, in the marketing department, and in the operations department. So that's all about the importance of business statistics. Of course, your module doesn't require you to do that. That's why I was putting it as a discussion, so that we just have an understanding of this. Right, and then now, this is my slide before the last. Right, this is it's going to be the module aspects for our Monday session. You will see that 1 and 2 we have already covered, this and that. We've already covered that. Of course, to make the process complete, we just go a little bit on the branches of statistics and the population versus the sample concept, but we have covered that thoroughly. And if you understood what we discussed, then you are ready for any type of question from that particular section. Right, so our main focus is going to be what is data here with respect to the sources. So now we we'll go into detail on the sources of data. We discuss this in detail, and then we go to data types. There are a lot of them, and then we discuss them in detail as well. This is for Monday. And then we'll also look at the methods of collecting data. Of course, there are observations, there are interviews, there is experimentation. So here you'll be required to know what is observation when you are collecting data, what is interviews, and what is experimentation. So this will be for our Monday session. Right, with that, this is my last slide. So this marks the end of my presentation for today. I will allow for questions, suggestions. Like I said, Monday, we are starting on specifically because unit 1 is just what we're trying. We have covered more than enough for unit 1, but the most important unit, we start from unit 2. So on Monday, we are starting from unit 2, then we move on. So if I will allow you to ask any questions, make any suggestions. I like suggestions because they make me comfortable. Because if I just talk and talk without you guys suggesting to me what you want, how you want us to go forward, it makes me uncomfortable. But if you tell me, no, let's do this, let's do it this way, let's try it this way, it gives me some comfort because it shows me that you are part of the group. But any suggestions, any questions before we close?
This is a very vocal bunch, sir. So take the non-questions as a compliment. You will know if there's any suggestions.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no questions or any suggestions, thank you very much for being part of this session. Hoping to see you on Monday and in other sessions. Otherwise, for me, it's a goodbye and a good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.